January 15th has arrived. Way more NBA players can be traded. Is the Pacers trade outlook any different than it was a month ago? What should they be considering? Heading into the deadline, Rhett Bauer and I talk externally about the Pacers. All coming today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Congrats. You made it through the week, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, January 15th is when I'm talking. It's the 16th when this comes out, and that means trade season speeds up a tiny bit. Lots of guys who were signed in the summer with certain kind of bird rights and got a big raise can be traded today. For the Pacers, Isaiah Jackson is officially trade eligible, for example, and that means the trade market can really speed up. Basically, everybody who can be traded this year, outside of a few special cases, can now be moved. Most moves are now possible. So let's preview the trade deadline for the Pacers with Rhett Bauer again. This time, we're going to look externally. Last time we talked about internally what the Pacers should consider. This time we look outward at positions, at kind of certain players and certain types of players that they would think about and how it all plays into roster spots and players on their own team, things of that nature. Really good conversation. Let's just get right to it. It is January 15th. Everybody else calls it Jonathan Kuminga Day. Yay, another report about him. In Pacerland, it's Isaiah Jackson Day, even though it's obviously way different situations for Isaiah Jackson and Jonathan Kuminga. Every player on the Pacers who can be traded this year is now eligible to be so. Congrats to Aaron Nesmith and Micah Potter. You have avoided the Eye of Sauron for this year's trade deadline. You are not trade eligible, but that means it is time for the second trade deadline look ahead of the year here on Locked On Pacers. Rhett Bauer was here last month at the NBA Cup break. The Pacers had won 4 out of 6, had a little bumpy ride in the Cup break. We're ready to go coming out, and then they lost 11 in a row. Rhett, before we get into the differences, we have too many trade updates about Jonathan Kuminga, I say.
I think every fan base would include a second round pick to not have the rumors keep going. It's like at some point the front office is just gonna be like, hey, like Sacramento, I'll give you my 2032 second to just please take him on so I can stop hearing about this.
I forget who wrote the headline, but it was like Jonathan Kuminga trade sweepstakes latest. And I was like, is it just gonna be blank? Like, is there just going to be nothing in this? Like, that is going. Anyway, the 15th unofficial. Obviously, there's already reporting today that Kuminga has demanded a trade, which the trade deadline does heat up now that everybody basically can be moved. There's a couple guys who signed their contracts at weird dates and aren't really relevant to this discussion. So, Rhett, an important place to start is what I just set up is that when we last talked, obviously, it was earlier in the season. You never know how things are going to go for a basketball team. Things turned around for the Pacers at the Cup break last year. What to you, if anything, is different for the Pacers in terms of how they would think about trades from last time we talked to now, which includes the last 11 games of a 13-game losing streak and then 3 spirited performances before a blowout in their most recent game?
I don't know that much has changed other than like an absolute certainty that you cannot afford to be anything other than the bottom 3 in this draft. Like you can't mess around and accidentally win games and end up being 4th where your potential floor drops like ever so slightly further and further away from the top 3 and then who I think are a pretty clear 4 and 5. So you definitely don't have your starting center of the future on the roster. That is absolutely clear. The players that we have been hoping to increase their value by showing some stuff has been more or less the same. And I don't think that much has changed around the Pacers either in terms of like potential future trade candidates or the teams surrounding them that might change the future of what they want to do.
If I had to like really like get granular about this, I would say one, if I wanted to be like the rosiest person ever in the Pacers front office and like smile at all my coworkers all day, I would say that they played a stretch of 7 games from New Year's till now where they were out. I guess the Spurs game was not great, but they were like pretty good in all of them. And that's only relevant to say, I keep wondering if they just wanted this whole time one stretch where they were healthy-ish, not healthy, but healthier, to be like, okay, if we were healthy all year, we would have been a decent team, like we thought. Like just to know. Because if you never know, it's even if you're not like it's not going to change your decision making because you made the finals last year. At least you're like, okay, I know my players are still good. Like I can continue to build a team knowing my players are good. It's only been 2 weeks of this, and I guess they were winning in the fourth quarter of their game on New Year's Eve against the Magic too. So you could say maybe since Christmas even. They got punked by Boston and Houston in there, but they were winning in the second half in Miami too. Like you could say they've played good enough ball to be like, yeah, that's probably true. If they were actually as healthy as like an average team all year, they would not be 9-32 right now. They'd be 15-25 maybe, or 26, which still isn't good, but like, you know, a much more respectable team that's just like missing Tyrese Haliburton. Okay. The other thing is you could say, oh, cool. Johnny Furphy might be ready for rotation minutes next year. Jarris might not have forgotten how to play basketball completely. Ben Shepherd might not have forgotten how to shoot the ball completely, right? I don't think they would have lost too much confidence in Shep specifically, but the other two guys, they just have no idea about them. I'm not saying that would really change a lot in how I thought of either of Walker or Furphy as the Pacers, maybe slightly in Jarris's case, but like not significantly in either case. Other than that, though, I mostly agree that their trade deadline outlook is so unique because of Haliburton's injury in the finals last year that the games aren't as relevant to their plans this year. If they rattled off 15 wins in a row right now and they were like 500 or better and might make the postseason, that would have changed things. But other than that, I don't think there's a lot that could have happened to make me go, wow, they can't possibly trade away any pieces this year. Like they can't possibly go for the center now. I think it's mostly similar, just with more options now because it's actually the 15th.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as what Jarris and Furphy and Shepherd did to change their opinion, we're still talking about like the 8th, 9th, 10th man. So it's like the range of outcome that they're going to put themselves into is just not like it's not going to change the future of the team. And so I do think that one of the more positive things is that I think you can definitively say that Jay Huff will be an impactful backup. Yep. I think we know that for a fact. And that's one thing I'm actually excited about is like, hey, you know, put him in position to be successful and play as a backup. And like, that's going to be extremely impactful in the same way that Jalen Smith was a couple of years ago. It's like, hey, you can win bench units with an impactful backup center.
And Micah Potter, a cheap third big potentially, right. Although his like worst 2 games of the season have been the most recent 2 games. So we'll see if he can bounce back in any way. But yes, he is like kind of interesting. He was not even on the last time we did this. They had Garrison Matthews on the team, right? Remember him? Good time. We had to talk about him not being trade eligible because he was signed too late. Okay. So the scene set there. Last time you and I did this, we focused, and I think that was the right move, on the internal sort of outlook for the Pacers, the focus on Ben Mathurin because his contract is expiring. I think nothing has really changed on how that goes. He didn't play particularly well in between, but he was so hurt. Like he has 2 injuries, right? The thumb that he's now wearing a wrap on when warming up and the foot that he admitted was bothering him. So it's really hard to assess his play in any way. Isaiah Jackson we talked about because if he's not going to be the backup 5, his contract is quite expensive for a third center. That's still the case, and he barely has played. I don't think there are internal considerations of the guys we spent the most time focusing on outside of like, hey, here's the glut of contracts that would probably be included in any trades the Pacers made this year. So I don't want to go through the internal stuff this year. What I want to look at is now they canvassed the other 29 teams. What are they asking for? What do they want? What do they need to accomplish? And I tried to set a little bit of that scene this week when I said, when is the right time for them to try to get their starting center in one segment? But do you agree that should be like half plus of their outgoing phone calls between now and February 5th?
That should be almost all of their outgoing phone calls because I wouldn't want to be the team calling out about, hey, do you want to buy Bennedict Mathurin? Because that's not exactly coming from a position of strength if you are calling to ask if somebody wants to buy a player that you currently have on your roster. But also, that is what you need the most information about, whether you make a move or not. You need to know, and that was the thing I kept finding myself circling back to as I was listening to that episode, is you need to know what the limiting factor is on your ability to acquire your starting center.
Yep.
Is it matching salary? Is it assets? Is it that you have to include Isaiah Jackson in the deal, and it's just right now not feasible because his contract is overblown for what his production is? Like, you need as much information from as many different avenues as possible, and you can't do that unless you're having those conversations.
And you can know ahead of time as you approach a summer where the tax barrier is going to be a thing, and you don't know what your draft pick's going to be, but in the summer you will know what their salary is and how they fit into your salary structure. Like you can figure out, okay, well, if we get this guy, it'll cost us this much and he will fit in or he won't fit in. And it's not going to be that much different if you have the first pick versus the sixth pick, but there is a salary difference there. Like there is a big drop in what that does to your available wiggle room for the rest of your team, which obviously you'd prefer the higher pick if you can get it, but that does matter for what they want to know. And this is always talked about amongst people. And I didn't really get this until I understood the transactional cycle of the NBA a little better, how much sometimes like a discussion and a deadline is actually like what you just said. Like it leads to something that happens actually in the summer, or something that's chatted about in the summer ends up happening during the season. Like, Kuminga to the Kings is like potential, if that happens, potentially a great example of something of that nature. Right. And so even if they aren't getting the center now, calling around and seeing who is maybe available or what their price point is right now, or what teams would be considering something depending on like the playoffs tell all, right? What if a player that's not available now, their team flames out and stinks in the postseason and they realize they need to change directions, right? You just have to know the landscape of the league. So I do think there's a strong case for them to trade for that center now. I think the record is bad enough that even if they play better with a better center on the team for a while, they're not going to fall that far in the inverse standings. I don't think they want to do that regardless, but it's not like that risky to do that. So I think there is good sense in doing it now at the contract situation, but it's still important to be center all the time. They need to figure out exactly what their options are going to be and are now. And if that's there now, they should do it. Do you have anything to add to that before we run through the reported names?
Nope, let's do it.
Everybody, quick breaks. We can talk about DoorDash. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season more fun because every player has their bag. And with DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out. DoorDash has become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need that dessert now. Those late-night interviews hit, and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built for exactly that. If someone in the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you know that you're prepared with snacks, cups, even a phone charger for the friend who's always at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Okay, the actual connected to the Pacers via a credible insider. I'm going to repeat the word credible insider before continuing. I get so sick of I saw this thing. Our Daniel Gafford, who is just hurt all the time now and is a little scary in that way because he's clearly good, but is like maybe the worst starting center and is hurt a lot. Ivica Zubac, who is amazing. And I believe it was reported by Michael Scott, it would take 2 first-round picks to get him, but he's really good and was like all-star level player last year. Walker Kessler, reported by 3 people as the Pacers connection. On a rookie scale deal, out for the year, helps with the losses for the Pacers, also helps the Jazz with the same things, is very good. It's going to cost a lot more money next year. Nick Claxton, who I'd classify as like, meh, yeah, he's good. His contract declines. That's exciting. That would help the Pacers, certainly. Kind of expensive to get. You have to send out a lot of stuff to do it. And Yves Missi, who is he's a really interesting one to me because he's been connected to the Pacers, and that made a lot of sense even before the season started. And he's just not starter quality yet. He's good. He just had a really good game for the Pels as they beat the Nets. But there are some games where they're playing Karla Markovic and Kevon Looney and not even playing Yves Missi. The Pelicans, who stink, right? He's good, but at what cost? Is he actually going to ever be a starting level big? And now a guy that I thought for a while was maybe like the perfect salary and ability fit for the Pacers, reported today, I believe by Jake Fisher. Welcome Onyeka Okongwu to the Pacers list of guys that they have reportedly talked about. Great player, great fit, to me among the dreamiest targets for them. 1, do you think I missed anyone? I've been trying to make sure not to. And 2, who among that group stands out to you and for what reason?
I don't think you missed anybody. Okongwu being added to the reported list is very exciting. I think he'd be my top choice of any of the names that you just listed. But I mean, The most likely candidate I've said for a while, I think, is Nick Claxton, just because he is expensive, which means that maybe he makes a lot of money for his position, so maybe he's not that attainable for other teams. Walker Kessler's just expensive. Like that's gonna be a lot. Zubac, obviously two first round picks. That's kind of a lot. And then, Yves Missi, like you said, not really a starter, and you want to gamble whatever
Right.
you'd have to give up to get a maybe guy that has to fight with J Huff for backup minutes. So I love Okongwu, and I think his contract being locked in for like 2 years, $33 million after this year. And we talked about the extension capability after this contract that might be in the ballpark to keep him on the team. I just think he's great, and that would be, I don't know why he would be available, to be quite honest with you, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, I've never understood that either. Unless the Hawks are like, we really want to re-sign Kristaps Porzingis, who plays like half the games, to be our starting center.
Right. Or trade for Anthony Davis, who will also only play half the games.
The only way they would think about it is if the Hawks have like major cap space dreams. But even then, just do it in the summer. Just trade him in the summer at that point, right?
Yeah.
And that is a Claxton thing too, is matching salary for him is the biggest hurdle for the Pacers. He's at $25.3 million. Then he goes down in the summer. Like that also is a benefit to the Pacers. They're like, if we trade in the summer, we don't have to worry about the financial parts now, because for Okongwu, there are 2 contracts under $10 million away. They just are there. Basically, for Claxton, you got to get to 3 of them, maybe even 4 if you don't want to do all of Mathurin and Walker for him. And I wouldn't want to do that for Nick Claxton myself, obviously. So,
which, to be clear, I mean Claxton most likely in the summer, not at this deadline. Specifically for that reason. You get the pick, you know what your salary is going to be, lower salary matching, all that stuff. Sorry.
But then that's also, I don't believe this, but they want to be good next year, Rhett. They don't have their pick. I'm winking.
That's right. Yeah.
They want to be good. They swear.
Sure.
So that's what makes any of these hard, and that's what makes like Zoo. He's at like 22. And all these guys that make that much or less, like super interesting to me, is that they're right in the range where the Pacers could get them without giving up anything that I would say is tied down, and keep their financial situation like right where they need it. It's not easy to do that, but it's possible. If they make, I would say 25, 26, 27 or more, that's when it gets pretty challenging, because a lot of people will say, well, call about Bam, call about Triple J.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Those 2 players are very good. Right. And the thing with them is, I mentioned this on 2 days ago, they make $35 million-ish both bouts this year, and then they go way up on extensions next year. And given the Pacers' salary structure for trades, they would basically have to trade for those guys now, like this year, or else it becomes impossible without trading Siakam for them, and they would not do that. And so, and everybody else, I'll just trade Nembhard and Eastman, because they're not going to do that either. They would gut their team. So that's obviously possible to do, but that has to be now. So the timing for every person they would want is different. And that's also an interesting part of this, and why they need to be calling every team about every center. And this one is, sorry, I'm rambling. This is not a needle they can thread. Like on the wing, or with like, if they take a contract from a team over the tax to get a little something, you can thread a needle. You can maybe get a player, see if they're good. You get an asset along the way. You can't thread a needle with your center. They have to be good now. You can't try this like cute little, maybe they'll be good next year thing. Like you have to go for a good player now. So they can't be like, well, we really like that's what is wrong with me about Yves Missi. I don't know if they'll be ready next year. Right. That feels too like cute almost. Right. So I don't know. These are my many thoughts about the Pacers.
Yeah. I don't see why. I feel like that would have to be an asset thing on the Pacers side, where it's like somehow you are getting a potential center and something else for something. I don't really know, or maybe it's a package that comes along with something else, but I don't really understand that. To be just a little bit more accurate, Zubac this year makes 18.1, next year makes 19.5. So
at the end,
21 at the end. So
the end. Okay, that's even better.
Much better, yeah, because you're 2 contracts away from that, really. Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. And that is, he's a great fit. He's among my better options for them, but he would cost a lot for a reason. He's very good, right? I don't think people understand that. Well, actually, maybe Pacers fans do. Didn't he have that like 30 and 30 game against them in LA a couple years ago? He has not done that this year. No. But that is something he's capable of. Yves Missi to me is like you unprotect a pick that you previously had protected in a Trey Murphy trade to make them throw an EPC, right? Not that like you're like doing the trade to get him.
Exactly.
Kind of how I feel. So that is going to be the stuff that I've talked about a lot of this that I think you'll hear the most of externally. You know, I talked about how I think you'll hear Mathurin the most internally for the Pacers. I think externally, as we've seen today, the first reports about Okongwu, what you'll hear the most about the Pacers in the next, 3 weeks now, is centers they're connected to, how aggressive they're being about it, and it will be telling what they think in terms of when the right time to do this is. Because if they don't feel like it's the right time now, it might just mean that it's somebody that's easier for them to acquire in the summer, not that they don't want that player at all. And if they want that player now, it might be the opposite. It might be that it's a player who's easier to acquire now, given their situation than in the summer. So that context is all very important, and that is why, maybe even more, I think the percentage I said might be lower. Maybe 60% of their calls, 65 will be about centers. I don't know.
It's got to be 80. It's just got to be. Like, I don't know. Because you can't miss on this position. No, you just can't. Like,
you're screwed.
Because
if you do this trade and you don't get a player who fits or is good, you don't have like another trade to flip and do. You have to trade, flip and do, not flip and do. I'm not familiar. You can't, like, you're out of movable stuff. You'd have to move a real rotation player that you love and that you've called a part of your ecosystem for years if you mess up the center trade. Yes, I agree.
Yes. And I said, somebody asked me a while ago, it's like, what about Jakob Poeltl? It's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You like, there's not even there's no chance in the world, because guess what? Not only does he make 19 and then he'll jump up to 27, if he has a back injury, that's just complete non-starter. So you cannot afford to miss. And that's kind of where, like, if we go back to last summer, it's kind of where, even if you didn't like Miles Turner, even if you wanted him off of the Pacers, this was the whole entire conversation about why it was so painful to just lose him. Because you are out of the salary slot. You do not have the flexibility of using a $20 million salary to get something else. You just miss it. It's just gone. And that is why some of these trades are hard, because if you want to trade for a guy that makes a lot of money, you're going to have to include something that you probably don't want to include. And that cuts the options down tremendously. And I think that that's a big factor in the Bennedict Mathurin conversation that you were having a couple of days ago that I think people are probably going to miss. That would be the other part of the conversation, is if you're having Bennedict Mathurin trade talks, the asset pool that you've talked about a couple of days ago is not worth the opportunity to still have no tradable salaries in the summer.
Yes, and base your compensation makes even that a hard trade. And how many of these centers that we've talked about today would it be so much easier if it was like, even if you think Miles stinks, you could say, well, okay, they could just trade Turner and something small for any of these guys, basically, right? It's over. Like, that's the whole thing. Yep. So it did hurt to lose him from that perspective. I'm not a big fake trader, so I'm not going to put together packages here. I've finally started to be like, okay, I need my own ideas. If I were the Pacers, what would I be like thinking about doing? One more break here, guys. We got to talk about FanDuel. Fridays always feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts from 6 to 7:30 Eastern on Fridays. Appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, and it'll bring something new. Boosts, bonuses, surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. Right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So, before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. One is, let's start with the cap nerdy stuff, Rhett. They're bad enough now that screw it. Take Chris Paul. Get a little second along the way. Let him be your vet, shining down the rest of the season. How fun. Yeah, that'd be one. Okay, actual, like, real stuff that people would be interested in. So Minnesota keeps getting named in all these, like, every time a star is available, you see Minnesota's name pop up, right? Do they want Trey? Would they chase Ja, LaMelo? Even better, bigger creators, right, have been connected to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Their salary structure is kind of confusing to me. Rhett, is it possible that they could get in on a Minnesota big trade to get Naz Reid. I think that would be something that would behoove the Pacers to do should he be available. He's quite good. That would not be a direct trade. I don't think there's a route for the Pacers to say, we want Naz Reid, here's some stuff from us. But I do think there would be, if Minnesota can swing big, which they keep getting reported to be doing, so I don't know if they actually are, would be something I would be pursuing. And hey, the Pacers love to sneak in on these 3-team trades. It's how they got Karis LeVert.
Exactly. I hearken it back to when the Cavaliers got Jared Allen, exactly in the same sort of deal. The Nets got Harden. The Rockets didn't want Jared Allen. They traded their own first that year. It was like late 20s, and they got Jared Allen. And now look at what Jared Allen is. Obviously, we know that Naz Reid is in a different situation, but it would the leeching on to a deal that's already happened is one of the bigger things. And that's kind of where a guy like Wendell Carter Jr. would be another option. If for some reason the Magic went and did something and Wendell Carter Jr. was part of the matching salary, yeah, maybe you sneak him. And I thought Okongwu fit into that same boat. But I don't know how Minnesota does anything big. Like, I just don't.
I also think it's tricky.
It's tough. It's really, really tough.
It has to be Reid too, because all their other big salaries are like of critical importance. Not that he's not, but like are of like critical importance to their team's success.
Well, and they need so much help in the backcourt. It's like, are you using Dante DiVincenzo to match salary? No, he's been really good.
Well, the real problem for Minnesota is that Dillingham has just not been very good this year.
Well, yeah, there's that.
So maybe something else would be interesting of that. Okay, here's a team that got brought up a lot in the summer that has kind of shifted their dynamic that makes it tricky, but Portland has a ton of centers. And it's hard because there's Klingon, who's probably just straight up unavailable, but would be like, he would go in the dreamy fits to me. Like, he is really good. He's expanding his range a little bit. His defense is awesome. And then outside of him, Young Han Sen has not been awesome. He's in the G League a lot. Dwap Reith is not good enough to qualify for what the Pacers need. And then Robert Williams was a guy that everybody talked about a lot in the interim of like, could this be the right salary slot and ability level for the Pacers? I still wonder that. I don't think he's good enough. I put this in my like I would think about this, but he's just hurt too much. He's like, it's like Gafford, right? They're both hurt a lot, and Gafford's just better. So if you're going to trade for an injured guy because they're injured and their value's low, just trade for Daniel Gafford instead. So Rob Will was on my like, this still makes sense as an idea list, and now I'm kicking him off, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to look up Robert Williams' salary because I believe that with Gafford's extension, Time Lord will make about half of what Gafford will moving forward, and that matters.
That's appealing. That's nice.
For a guy that
I was under the impression that Gafford was just above the MLE right now, pre-extension, and Rob was a little bit below that, but I don't remember exactly.
Gafford's 17 and up to 19, and then Robert Williams, if I can click fast enough, looks like he is on an expiring 13.3 right now. So
expiring hurts. That does fit in the MLE.
That hurts, but ultimately he is as hurt as what you said, and if that means that he can be had at a discount, and if you're going to do that, you have to be confident in Obi Toppin being your closing five, basically, which is what we talked about going into the year. If you want to go,
who needed to be Obi Toppin? It could be Johnny Furphy, Rhett.
Right, that's exactly right. But if you want to shift your team that way, that opens a whole different realm of possibility. But again, if you want to do that, you could still do that with like Yeko Okongwu or someone else that doesn't need bubble wrap and 40 games off a year.
Okay, my last one is my way of pivoting off of centers.
Okay,
I saw a report that said it would take 3 first-round picks to get Trey Murphy.
I'm in.
Deal.
Done.
Done. Any pick but this year, done. Deal. Like, right? And so throw Misi on top of that.
Yep.
call it a day. Pels have a lot of stuff that does honestly make sense for the Pacers. Like, they probably don't want Jordan Hawkins anymore. I don't think the Pacers would be thrilled to have Jordan Hawkins' salary next year, but like, that's who the Pacers in their current situation should be giving a shot right now. Give the young guy a look. Same with Misi. Like, is that alone a fit outside of Trey Murphy? But between the always injured and only shot at good once in his career Herb Jones, between Trey Murphy, who's incredibly good, like probably should not even be available, probably isn't available. The Pels do make sense as a trade partner for the Pacers, even though I think that and those two teams have worked together already, but that would be like the dream, even outside of centers. Like if they could get Trey Murphy, oh my God. But I don't think they can, but that would be on my you should just do that. If that's actually true, just go trade 3 first for Trey Murphy.
I believe I said it a couple years ago. It was like, hey, if I could just trade Miles for Trey Murphy, just like straight up, even when I would just do it. I've loved Trey Murphy since he came into the league. I said he should start for the Pelicans as soon as they drafted him. They slow rolled him for whatever the heck reason, and now he's unbelievable and the best player on their team without much question, in my opinion. So I said it. I was like, I don't think there is such thing for overpay for Trey Murphy, and I believe that to be the case for the Pacers as well. So yeah, that'd be unbelievable. I don't even care who the center is at that point.
That's my bridge out of centers to say, if Mathurin's future is a question mark, and because of his contract, it is. Even if there's still, I think the favorite would be that he's possibly on the team next year. Probably is the wrong word, because he's a restricted free agent. And if Jarris Walker is also still a question mark because he's unproven, maybe Johnny Furphy can just slide right in to a rotation spot next year, and you're happy. There's your 10 guys. There is certainly a route for the Pacers to say, we need a wing, and we need one who can play 28 to 30 minutes that Ben Mathurin was playing, who was good. That is not a crazy thing for them to explore right now. And if Trey Murphy would obviously move, Aaron Eastman.
That's a different conversation.
Right, but that's a different thing. He's not a bench guy. But that is another – I don't have a lot of listed ideas for specific players in that way. But that is not at all – outside of the ballpark to me. If they can find a player like that, which is very hard to do, those are very in-demand players, that is absolutely something they should be. That would be another large percentage of my calls, is seeing who's available that can fit that kind of band of player, like a 5th to 8th man, 2 through 3, 3 to 4 kind of player.
The previously reported Keon Ellis is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
That's exactly it. And this is another situation where I think the Pacers latching on to a bigger deal might be important, because you could get, if a team ends up using, if the Grizzlies end up trading Ja and Vince Williams is in that deal and he's going out, you go get Vince Williams. Yeah, exactly. You take him in his $2.3 million this year and his 2.6 or whatever next year, and you've got your 8th to 10th man if you really want to. That didn't really cost you much. If the Warriors go big game hunting and Moses Moody is available, okay, great. There's another example of a guy that's just kind of middle of the pack, might not be super expensive, and then you just go from there. So I completely agree. That would be the other 20% of the outbound calls that I would be doing with the ADP and the centers. But really, that wouldn't be as much of a priority, because you kind of have to think about what that draft pick, if they're as good as what it seems like they might be, they're gonna be in that rotation. It would be a big deal for them to not be, if they're gonna draft a top 5.
You got to my next point, which is the center spot is important enough that they need a center who can start now. The draft pick, I don't think, can be that. A draft pick can be your 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th guy right away, and maybe should be, honestly, given salary considerations. And so the difference between trading for a wing that I just described and a center is that you also have to bake in your own level of confidence in your current things. You're not going to overpay for Vince Williams if you have X% belief that Johnny Furphy or Jarris Walker, maybe that will be better than them, but can slot into that rotation slot, even not considering who they draft. Like a McConnell, Furphy, Shepard, Toppin, backup 5 bench, is already on their team. Right, they don't need to go get this thing that I'm talking about. It's just that you could stand to maybe have better stuff there. So that is just something for them to at least consider. I also, as I think we've said before, did we say it on a recording? Think that it would not be crazy for them. I mean, Chris Paul is hilariously this, but would not be next year because he said he's retiring this year. They do need a third point guard. They have not been able to go to McConnell Nembhard as much as they want because they don't. I mean, now they're playing Q more than they were, but not a lot. We'll get to Q in a second, actually. If they could find a cheapo vet min guy who's under contract for next year, that's a point guard that's not bad, that would make sense to me. But it's hard to find a player who's yes, I'm totally comfortable being on a team where I'm not playing at all, right? So that's not a priority or even something I would really be caring about per se as the Pacers. But if there's a guy available who fits that calling, great, go get him.
It's also impossible to try to give up stuff for that player. What do you
just have?
If you just call the Grizzlies about Vince Williams, they're like, okay, well, we want this thing. It's
Vince would play.
That's a lot, right? He would, but even still, it's that's such a strange tier of player to be calling about. So that definitely seems like an off-season, 2.7 chunk of whatever exception you've got. But no, I think there's more than just the center, but I think every secondary consideration of like the wing and the backup guard and like the role for the draft pick does tail off of the center decision.
Agreed. Okay, two more things. One is, I already said this, but I'll say it with you now and let you add input. I still think the most likely thing that happens here is Ochai Agbaji in a second, or other
Use
tax,
another name on my wings. Yep.
other tax team plus a second to the Pacers for, nothing, a fake phony second or whatever it may be, because that is the perfect way for them to actually like, they use their space, air quotes, to get assets and get something they can like evaluate the rest of the season. But they can do exactly what we've talked about. Move their draft pick into the rotation, punt the can down the road to get their center in the summer, right? But still get stuff without being sellers. It just makes so much sense to me. Toronto, Denver, Phoenix, Orlando, Philly. Those are the 5 teams that I'm like, that seems like the most natural. Jet Howard to the Pacers for nothing. Nick Richards to the Pacers. All these guys make logical sense to me as like potentially if they aren't getting something awesome, the most logical thing that could happen at this deadline for the Pacers.
Ochai Agbaji is another name that I had on my list to you. Worth a shot, and that's
it's so Pacers too, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say. It's like, hey, Jalen Smith. This is exactly the situation that the Suns and Pacers found themselves in, and they ended up getting a rotation player out of it. Like that is valuable. And
Jordan Nwora.
Yeah, exactly. You don't. That is exactly what the tail end of this particular season, is good for. Is finding out what the heck any of these players can do with extra opportunity.
And Sticks and Nwora are good comps from this front office because they came in the 2 worst seasons of record, at least, that this front office has had. Right, and I still maintain, by the way, Torrey Craig for Jalen Smith. That was a financial move. They did that to get a little farther under the tax.
1,000%.
And it just worked out really well. But that's exactly what this should be, right? And same kind of, and Nwora was the same thing. Like they just said, great, we can get a free Jordan Nwora and a bunch of seconds for like nothing. Cool. Right?
Julian Strother, come on down.
Buying trade, that stuff makes perfect sense for them this year. It's so easy to explain. You get assets for nothing. You rent out your distance from the tax. That's why I thought they had cut a center. They cut Tony Bradley. That's why I think they'll have a roster spot when the trade deadline comes. Very easy to do. I still maintain that is the most likely thing that they could do. The other consideration, Rhett, very small. Right now, I forgot to count this before we started, so now I have to count something. Right now, there are 10 games before the trade deadline, and importantly, 19 games before March 1st. Care to guess how many games Ethan Thompson and Taylor Peter have left on their 2-ways before they can no longer play in games?
17.
18.
Oh, darn it.
Very close. Quentin Jackson's just 29 because he got hurt so much.
Yeah.
March 1st is a key date there because it's the last day you can convert a player and their contract from a 2-way to a standard, because that's the last day you can sign a player to a 2-way is March 1st. So that's when most teams want to do it. Kendall Brown had that happen 2 years ago, right, for the Pacers, and then they backfilled that with Quentin Jackson, I believe, actually, funny enough. So they have to have a roster spot to do that. I would not make that a priority, but if I believe, we just said a third point guard's a thing for them to consider. If I'm the Pacers and I think Quentin Jackson can do it, they're playing him like they think he can do it right now. They got to think about that, what they want to do with those roster spots, how they would put all that part of this together. I'm not saying I'm like not doing a trade because it would fill the Quentin Jackson roster spot, but I am saying it is at least like a consideration for them. All those guys fit that bill. Like at some point, the G League season ends. Like you're out of days, you just can't play these guys. But Peter and Thompson are also under contract for next year. Quentin Jackson is not, and is not even 2A eligible next season.
Right. There's some trades out there that are purely like, hey, we are going to give you this player and cash, and you're going to take a roster spot so you can get money. I don't think the Pacers would do a trade like that, depending on the amount of money, if it meant not having Quentin Jackson on the team for the rest of the year. Like that's one of those deals that would probably just not be on the table because they would rather have Quentin Jackson on a standard contract.
And they have nobody they can dump for cash. They're all too valuable to do.
Exactly.
Which hurts. And like last year, which you and I predicted this, and I'm going to ask you that same question. Wiseman got traded with cash because they could not have that many dead roster spots going into a postseason, and they ended up using it on Tony Bradley, who played finals minutes. Look at that, Rhett. We knew we were talking about. Like, they don't have the playoff consideration this year. It doesn't matter if they have dead roster spots, but it does. Like, it will be awkward if they hit a point where they have a two-way player on the team. Like, if Jackson doesn't get converted and he runs out of games, you just can't do anything about it. Like, he's, especially if it passes that March 5th date or whatever it is, March 1st. I don't know why I'm saying 2 dates. I can't remember which one it is. It's early March. It's just awkward. The G League season ends before the NBA season. That's when you just like, hey, go crazy, two-way dudes. Like, you wouldn't be able to do that. So that's like the smallest thing ever. I'll talk more about that after the trade deadline. All right, Rhett, our game last year. This was super easy last year, and I think the year before as well. Most likely to be traded? I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't think it's Mathurin. I don't think it's Mathurin. I'm gonna make it Isaiah Jackson. That is gonna be my guess. Just because I can see a world where they use him plus an asset to get something that clears maybe a little bit of money or gives them something a little bit different. I don't know. I don't think they trade Jarris just outright. I don't think Shepherd doesn't make a ton of sense. Huff, they like all the rest of these names just don't really make sense. And I think Mathurin is worth more to the team as he heads into restricted free agency than just dumping him for a couple seconds. So leaves only Ajax.
There is a clear top 3 answers to me.
Yeah.
And you just said all of them. It's Jarris Walker, Ben Mathurin, and Isaiah Jackson.
Yep.
I don't know which one I want to put first. I'm going to tap Jarris just a little out to the side as third most likely and say it's between Mathurin and Isaiah Jackson. Yeah. It's all contractual.
Yep.
People will comment, Rhett. They'll say, wow, they need to keep this guy potential so high. Or, oh my gosh, why are we trading Isaiah Jackson? He's a great player. And look how good he's played once he got his feet under him. That's all true. I'm not debating any of that.
Sure.
All contractual. Expiring Ben Mathurin, who maybe not fit into their salary structure, depending on how the other trades they make or what draft pick they get. And Isaiah Jackson, if he's not their backup 5 next year, is way overpaid. First of all, even if he is their backup 5, it's close. So I think it's one of those two. And I would agree with you that if the starting center trade doesn't materialize, the answer is Isaiah Jackson. If it does, it's probably Ben Mathurin because his contract being movable now is part of the reason they would do that trade now instead of in the summer. Okay. Did we cover everything? Did we get everything that we didn't get last time?
I think so. Yeah. Should Pascal Siakam be an all-star?
Yeah. I mean, he has played well enough, but they're
so bad.
Yeah.
But then again, so is the East. So
I know. I said this last year. I might do a segment on this before they name the starters tomorrow. Next week, I'll probably do this. Last year, I'll throw this in for context. The only player on a non-playing or better team who was named an all-star, the first round of all-stars, was Wemby, who's who was obviously, going to make it. And so if you think Pascal's like so obviously good he should make it, which he's played awesome this year, but not at quite that level, I would say. I just think 9-32 is gonna hold him back too much.
Pascal Siakam is not Wemby. That's a hot take to end things with, Tony.
I don't find that to be particularly insulting to him. But I hate doing this, but like if you just do the per game numbers, like it's like him and 6 other players,
right?
And like a lot of them are. The thing that might work for him, though, is if the international pool, like Jokic, is hurt or someone else, and they need a replacement, he would be very high on that list. So he might still have a chance because of that, but his record's going to hurt his chance of just being like, you are one of the 12, sir. But he's very
absolutely
good. And he said last night that he wants to work through everything here. Hey, stop saying, is he going to get so upset he wants a trade? No, he's not. He's not that short-sighted and stupid. Okay. And deadline day. I think you'll be back, Rhett, on like February 2nd or 3rd. I'm going to demand that also. Okay. We have all the possible. When's their last game? They play the 3rd, I think, and then the 6th. So we have 2 days.
I was going to say, I think
that's perfect.
Yeah, that'll work.
So look at that. Maybe they'll make a trade before then. Last year, the Siakam trade was like 2 years ago today. How about that? So perfect time. Like you just never know when the stuff's going to pop up as available. You never know who's going to put their thumb on the scale and make something happen. Rhett, where can people find you and the things you say about the NBA and the Pacers?
You can find me and my laughing at Bobby Marks saying that you can put half the roster on the trade block for the Chicago Bulls on Twitter at Rhett_Bauer.
Who besides Buzelis would not be on the trade block for the Bulls?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what the number was, but it made me laugh out loud when I looked at it because it was like you could put.
Did he actually type out all the names? That would look funny.
So in fairness, we could list half the roster. The Bulls have a league high, and then went on and listed. It was a bunch of free agency discussions. He wasn't being insulting, but golly, I thought it was funny.
I mean, what are you doing?
Even Buzelis. Yeah. Anyways, find me on Twitter.
Divulged into laughter. Did you see this from CHGO Bulls? Before their game, they beat the Jazz 2 nights ago. Before that game, the Bulls are 18-21. They've been 18-21 4 years in a row.
I think I remember that from last year when they were 18-21 3 years in a row. So I'm not surprised.
How? Like it's not like it's like, oh my gosh, how exciting! We've been 25-12 3 years in a row. Look how great and consistent we are. It's a bad record.
I mean. What are you doing? They don't call the play-in the Chicago Atlanta Invitational for nothing.
And Miami's trending right back towards it, baby. Some things never change in the NBA. Tomorrow here, we'll be talking Pacers Pelicans. That game got ruined for me. I was hoping it was a bowl game to battle for the last team to 10 wins. The Pelicans already got there. Randomly now an important tank game, which both of those teams are still playing, guys, so it's not, but it is. And then Pacers Pistons the very next night. I'll be up in Detroit for that. So lots of post-game stuff coming. Rhett, thank you once again for coming on to be my trade, czar guy I bounce ideas off of. We'll be back talking trades all the time until the trade deadline and all the games. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you very soon.